awesome. This shower was designed by the homeowner from scratch, and with the shaved rock tile and the marble and the mosaic at the border and even the little rounded niche, and then the other border mosaic, and then the mosaic follows through from the shower along the top of the tub all the way around, and it looks awesome. And it failed, and it failed for a lot of different reasons, and so I'm going to kind of enumerate those reasons. Sometimes I go on a little bit of a tangent or a rant or whatever the case is. Let me turn this light on, because it pains me to have to do these videos time and time and again, going back 11 years when I posted my first video on a failed shower job. It pains me to know that the homeowner spent all this an inordinate amount of money on getting a shower done. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4,000. Besides labor, to have something done this piss poor. So, not to, and I don't mince words, and you know, I critique every little thing. When a shower fails, I critique every little thing because it tells me whether or not this guy can build a shower or if he was just an okay tile guy. And then sometimes, well, no, every time that I come in for a consultation, as I'm doing here, I always kind of discertain that from the start. So I start looking at cuts, and I start looking at trim, and I start looking at all the little tiny things that tell me that he could build a shower or he couldn't build a shower. And so when I first walk in, I'm not in any way impressed by the design features or this or that or whatever. What I start doing is a closer look. And I usually start on the tub because the shower, since it failed already, we're going to get to that. This guy had a good idea with doing this schluter trim, but the application of it was horrible. We got definite lippage of the schluter trim, plus it was cut twice, and I don't know why, because these come in 8-foot sticks, and there's no reason that should have been 3 different pieces on a, well, less than 3-foot section. Yeah, it's probably about 3 foot. He used the corner pieces, which I'm not opposed to necessarily. It's an extra expense that's really not needed. Usually you're doing a 45 cut with this, but if you can't do a 45 cut for whatever reason, then I'm not opposed to doing the corner pieces. He did the inside corner pieces as well as outside corner pieces. Everywhere there's a corner. And again, I'm not opposed to that, but it just kind of tells me, look at that, lippage going on. But it kind of tells me the story about, you know, like when you look at a shower or any tile job, it tells you a story. And it's almost like I can imagine myself being this person, going through some of the angst and some of the struggle that he went through. And some of that struggle has to do with everything that he's done. You know, as I said, at a distance, this looks really good, but there's definite lippage on here. This doesn't match. It's the wrong size schluter, although it matches sort of kind of here. And the bottom doesn't match at all going across. So he used the wrong size schluter for this application of this mosaic. Plus there's lippage going on, and the lippage going on has to do with his inexperience at setting this mosaic and having a flat wall and having, you know, like a float go up against it and all that stuff. And then look how it bumps out, you know, tapers kind of out to the edge. So he struggled with a lot of this stuff. And I feel his struggle knowing what he had to deal with, you know, like he was in here going, you know, this isn't working and that's not working, and let me do the best I can. And he did the best he could. He did the best he could in a lot of respects. But at the end of the day, when you start looking at a lot of this stuff, some of it is customer requested and some of it is just the application thereof. And so look at that, holy crap. All 3 of these, I never even noticed that, it just popped out. When I get into something like this, you know, I'll say to my customer, you know, your wall is not flat and square and true. And so for me to get it square and flat and true, I have to cut out and put another piece of sheetrock in here, or whatever I have to do to make that happen. Even if I have to screed out some thin set or whatever. and it's going to cost you a little extra for what you pick for me to make it work, you know. Or I'll suggest to them, maybe let's do some field tile up to this point, and maybe do this at the top, and maybe a bullnose or something with the field tile, rather than do schluter, because schluter is finite, you know, it's not going to bend, and your wall is bending, and things, yeah. So a lot of that stuff has to do with the guy who's doing the work to begin with regard to not advising. Look at that bump out. With not advising some of these things that a lot of homeowners are unaware of, but they should be made aware of it, because it matters a lot. At the end of the day, you end up with a kind of a real crappy job, and then you don't really have anybody to blame but yourself, because you didn't have enough discussion. You didn't have enough. You didn't really have enough information, because the contractor didn't give it to you. Look at that. That's horrible. Because the contractor did, you know, a lot of discussion about how things should fit and all that stuff, or even like this. So they're doing a bullnose with this marble, which is okay, sort of. So there's a couple problems with that. We have field tile that encapsulates this. Then why do we have a cut? Why do we have a grout line? We don't have it here, but we have it here. So I'd rather have one long piece rather than have this cut down the center, because that's usually a place for water to get into. But then more to the point, we have a bullnose tile that comes up to this schluter, and they wanted the transition, but the transition, if they're going to do it, should have been here. But again, I wouldn't have suggested using all of this, because do you notice the slant? There is none. When you look at a knee wall, there's a slight slant on this tile going that way, but that's not where the shower is. The shower is over here. So this is a completely flat surface for water to pool up. And I think they mentioned also that they're getting a little orange discoloration from the water stagnating on top of there. The curb is flat. In fact, it looks to me, and this is a badly cut tile, it looks to me like it's well, it is slanted this way, which is kind of back-assward. And it's a poor application. It's a poor application of the tile, because everything, again, with regard to this, you know, right? So they have field tile, but yet they do these enormous cuts, enormous grout lines going on here that aren't consistent. In addition to, it's not one solid piece. They have solid pieces of marble that could have easily been put in here and done away with this schluter to begin with, because again, lippage going on here. They struggled a lot, as I said before. There was some struggling going on, and I don't know. Okay, so here we have the square center, right? Why? Because we got a 24-inch piece here and a 24-inch of the field tile, but we have a discrepancy. So that discrepancy is filled with this square. That makes no sense. Again, solid pieces of marble, you could have cut off and ripped a piece to go solid that way. Or even more importantly, you could have found maybe a 36-inch tile, one piece to facilitate that front part or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to make this happen, but the application of how he put everything in bothers me. And as I said, this shower failed. It definitively failed, and it's currently failed, which is kind of a moot issue for me to now come in and critique his work, but it matters because, you know, whether or not the shower failed, the tile work sucks. The tile work itself. This is a schluter bench, and so fortunately there is a slight slope on here. But unfortunately, he didn't really have a clue about grouting, because there's these little, everywhere you look, you know, water is going to pool into these little areas. So he didn't sponge it off appropriately. And I don't know what kind of grout he used, but I was talking to the homeowner about this earlier. This grout is still more so on the floor, powdery. And I don't know why it's powdery when this was done quite some time ago. So it's a little odd. I think it's sanded grout. I don't think he used prism grout. It's a horrible job that the floor wasn't done first. You can clearly see the tile were cut back from the wall. So the floor was never done first, and the tile overlaps onto the floor, which would have been the correct way to go. There's already grout popping out. Would that be the source of the leak? Possibly. I don't know. But there's a lot of other stuff going on that we're gonna get into. Tile-wise, anyway, I already talked about the mosaic, and it's doing the same thing here. It's all over the board. It's not flat and flush, so I'm not gonna talk too much more about that. I like these pencil pieces. The pencil pieces make it possible, even on the top here, make it possible where I don't have to, look at that. Oop, I'm not gonna talk about that. They make it possible where my field tile is thicker than my mosaic, and so therefore you would bump this out normally if you're gonna try and transition the two together with some 1/4 inch backer board. With the rope, with the pencil, I don't have to do that. You know, it's so beautiful to have this in here, top and bottom, because I can make the transition without having to bump this out. But he screwed up on how he put the pencil in, even with regard to lippage going on. And so it's kind of embedded in as deep as the field tile is. I don't know, it's just like, and the cuts are horrible. So, you know, he was given an opportunity. Look at this, little tiny, this tiny pieces. You know, math helps you a lot, and I'm the horrible at math. But even a dry fit, right? So you have these shorter cuts here. So then why not start a longer piece in the back here with then, that wouldn't exist because that would get pushed out, and then you got another piece over there. No, that's a notch out for the glass. But that wouldn't exist. And then you have a different size of that cut there. It's poor planning. It's poor planning in a lot of ways. But he was given an opportunity to not have to go through all the trouble of having this not flat and all that stuff. Given an opportunity with this, and he missed the boat on it. God, sometimes I don't even have to talk. The grout in here, this feels like unsanded grout. And unsanded grout would be sort of correct on natural stone marble, because you don't want to use sand and scratch off the surface. But if he had known about Prism, he could have gone that route and he wouldn't have had to worry about that. But then again, it doesn't look like he used spacers. And if he did use spacers, it was, look at that, the dig out of the grout. If he did use spacers, they were inconsistently used. Just a lot of issues with you know, I'm trying to find out if this was a tile guy that was any good at tiling, if he's ever built a shower before, because there are some tile guys that are excellent at their job of tiling, but they've never built a shower, and then you end up with all these problems exponentially, because it's not just one or two things I'm trying to point out. It's the preponderance of all the mistakes that tell me if he's ever built a shower, and this guy never has. Look at that, he never built a shower, and he's not even that great of a tile guy, because I've gone on failed jobs where the tile was pristine, but the job still failed anyway. This guy was barely a tile guy. Lippage going on everywhere. So there was, and look at the grout. So there was no leveling system used. I can tell that clearly on all of this. Just you know, overall, just bad cuts. Why not do this again? You already know that's going to show. Why not do that again? So overall, just bad application of everything. And again, same application on the floor. Whew, with this hump and this lippage and all this stuff going on. But all the little pooling that's going to happen with all this, you know, this is, the shaved rock is the easiest to deal with, as opposed to the real rock, which would, you know, give you the little troughs and the water would kind of meander around the troughs and all that stuff. With shaved rock, you should be able to sponge off your grout to the same surface as your shaved rock, but he wasn't able to make that happen. And just a lot of bad things. Like even that. It's a small issue to have the overcut, but why not? Why not take a couple extra minutes and do that over again? Do that over again. Do that over again. You know, just make it better. Do this over again. You know, just the inconsistency of a lot of this stuff. And then, of course, we get into the drain part, which more than likely has to do with their current leak. It's really hard to tell going forward in time what the problem was. I always suggest to people when they're having a shower built to take pictures on a daily basis. You know, every day of a shower build, When he came in here, I guarantee he spent somewhere between about 8 to 10 days building all of this stuff. So every day that you finish, take a picture, or that the guy finishes, whoever you hire, take pictures. Because wherever the failure was, you know, perhaps I can get in there and do a dissection of where that specific area was, rather than taking the whole floor out and redoing it, because I don't have a choice in the matter. It could be the curb area. It could be the bench, which is not going to be the bench because it's definitely a foam bench. It could be the knee wall, and I see there's some grout missing on the knee wall. It could be a combination of those things. But we don't know what we don't know when I don't know what I don't know. But if you took pictures and okay, day 2 he did the plumbing, and I see something where he screwed up, we could go up from the bottom and rectify that where we don't have to take out all this material. Right now I'm relegated to taking out one tile all the way around, the curb material, and all of your floor down to the wood. Because everything that failed has to do with something here, but I don't know where that was. I have to kill that patient to find the disease. And I don't want to have to do that. If you took a picture daily, we could almost decipher where the mistake was, but I don't know. Anyway, do your due diligence, folks. You know, I make these videos, I've been pumping these out now for 11 years. Going back 11 years on the first failure of a shower that I went on. I'm trying to forewarn you. I'm trying to give you a heads up. I'm trying to show you some of these mistakes that even if you didn't know the mistake that he made on a particular process, right? Because you're not familiar with the process. When he starts doing the tile work, right? He didn't do all this tile in a day, you know? So at the end of the day, you're like, oh, that's not right. This isn't right. These push-outs, these bump-outs, all this stuff, you know, these cuts aren't right. You know, stop the job. Don't waste all this money and time and aggravation and effort and then have to do it again. You know, just something simple like this, right? What is this about? How are you symmetrical with these two, but then not symmetrical with this? You got this long piece here, which means that you could have gotten a long piece over here, you know, but I don't know. The symmetry throws me off in a lot of ways. The symmetry and, you know, the bad grout job and the bad cuts and everything. Look at that. Everything about this job, insofar as the tile goes, tells me the full story. If the guy can't do tile, he certainly can't do a shower. So the tile alone should give you a heads up on what to do and what not to do. You know, some of the minor mistakes become, you know, one after the other, after the other, after the other. The minor mistakes become so overwhelming that we don't know what the major mistake was, which is the reason I'm here. It's almost irrelevant. It's irrelevant what the major mistake is, you know. So do your due diligence. Find out what you don't know. Find out about even the coloration. Look at that. I didn't even notice that. You got the white there and then the darker, like just, I don't know. Sometimes I complain too much in my videos and I don't mean to, but my focus is for you to save money. My focus is for you not to waste all this time and energy and aggravation and then at the end of the day have to do things over again. That's my focus. That's why I'm here. Other people should do videos, you know, like there's a bunch of tile guys on YouTube and, you know, they're always posting pictures of their job. You know, look how great this job is. Look how great I did this tile, and they're putting levels on things and showing. But why don't you give the heads up of the shower that you took out? You know, why don't you post videos the way I am to help people out ahead of time from, you know, like wasting money rather than propping yourself up? I don't know. It's just me. I don't like wasting money. All right, so in that video, in that part of the video anyway, you saw a lot of the mistakes that were made. I think it's inherently responsible of any person that does YouTube videos to show the bad work, because when I started 11 years ago, showing the bad work, it lets the homeowner know that's otherwise doesn't have a clue. So the reason I interrupted my own video is because I'm very, very excited about something. As a rule, I never go down, well, that's not true. As a rule, I don't go downstairs where the drain is at because the plumber's already gone down. More often than not, the homeowners called the plumber and said, hey, you know, I got this leak, and they say it's not the P-trap and it must be the pan liner. And I'm like, yeah, I knew that. So there's a cutout there where where the drain is at, and the plumber kind of deciphers that it's nothing that he can do, which is why I generally don't go downstairs and have a look. In this case, at the end of this consultation, the homeowner wanted me to come take a look. So I'm like, okay, let me take a look. I was so shocked. I was so shocked. I was shocked, I was excited, and I was dismayed at what I saw. I was just like, wow, this never happens. In the absence of pictures to show me the process of how somebody screwed up, because I can't rectify anything. In this case, something happened that's never ever happened before when I finally went downstairs. And had I gone downstairs first, you wouldn't have had to watch all that critique of all his tile work, because the tile work almost doesn't matter. It does to me and other tile guys, but the process before the tile matters the most. And so you're going to get a sneak peek at exactly what happened, how he managed to fail this shower. It's amazing. So stay tuned, you'll see. So this never, ever happens, which is why I never come down into the basement, crawl space, wherever I have to first to find a leak, because it never happens this way. But it happened today for the first time ever. Finding the leak for this shower became really easy once the homeowner had told me the 2 points where water were coming out. Normally what happens on a floor situation like that, I'm going to turn on my flashlight so you can see a little better. But what happens on a floor situation is that water will come out and it'll emanate around the square area of where the drain, the P-trap, this is a P-trap for those that don't know. This is your P-trap going from your shower out to the main line, right? So what happens in a normal situation, which is still abnormal, is that water would emanate from the curb area back there. It would saturate the curb material, then it would follow past path of least resistance, get it from the curb into the flooring material, and then that gets saturated to a point where the cutout is for the drain. It starts dripping somewhere around here, and it's like, yeah, you didn't have a problem with your drain ever, although everybody thinks it's the drain and they call a plumber first. It started over here, and then it emanates over here, and then you get tricked into thinking you have a problem with your P-trap. In this case, she told me she had an issue with water. Where is it at now? Oh, right above me. That there was water coming from this area, which is a hot and cold supply. So there's a very good possibility that somewhere above the valve, since the water only leaks through that whole area when the water is on, that somewhere around the valve or just beyond the valve into your shower head has a problem, which is a good thing. But more importantly, and to the point, look at this. This is the shower drain coming down. I don't know if I can show it very well. I think you can see it already definitively. See that? That is a perforation of the shower pan material. You're staring at mortar right up under there. And so they didn't do anything, and I don't know what kind of drain system this is, because there's no weep holes, there's no locking flange, there's no anything. So part of the problem is that they used the wrong drain for this application, or they used the wrong, how would I put it? The wrong instruction for the drain for this application. But more to the point, look at that rip. That never, I have yet to see the obvious problem with a shower pan, except if there were pictures taken during the process. But to have that stare at me, that rip stare at me like this, yeah, that never happens. So it's very obvious that we know definitively water is getting into your grout and then coming out that rip. And that just never happens. So I'm quite pleased and shocked, more so shocked, that they would allow that to happen. And then the whole cutout idea, look, they kind of, so see this cutout? That cutout would be indicative of a bottom flange for like an OD drain. And then they didn't use that. They just stepped over here and used this other drain. So it's very, very interesting. Those two things combined, you know, so I've already found the leak there, and it's very possible where those supply lines are that I just pointed out right there, that there's a perforation of the pan liner there, or what I said before about the shower head, or something happened to do with the shower fixture. So I think that is small potatoes. That's the bigger issue, but that can be rectified easier than tearing out and doing a whole shower pan redo the way I suggested upstairs, taking out the tile from the bottom down to the wood. We don't have to do that now, so I can rectify that from the surface level going forward. So yay. You don't know what you don't know until you know what you know. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're gonna call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.